Hello everyone, welcome back to the KMTRADERS channel. So this is the full market analysis 134. So looking at what we've got up ahead for next week, or this week basically, and compare our analysis from last week as well. So looking into gold, so the prior analysis was that we're going to wait for some sort of turnover in the market. We can see that price has just slowly been stepping up. So I think it looks like it could drop lower. Again, we're just waiting, but I'm thinking that price can still make more of a move to the upside. Really, I think that by the time we get to 1900, if we get above here, I'm thinking that price might start to go bullish and go swing to the upside a little bit more, but I'm still thinking that price can drop a little bit lower for now. So as long as we don't go above 1900, I think we should be okay. I'm seeing this as like kind of resistance. That's kind of my thought process. So regardless of that, I'm just thinking that price may want to pop up a little bit more, but ultimately if you was to obviously pick a bias, I would be looking for sells to the downside, and in that case we could expect 1680 to be taken out, even into 1660, even 1600, and then we can expect like some sort of rollover to the upside. So that's what I'm kind of like looking at for basically like plan A. This is a side note. This is pretty much like a option 2, but scenario 2 rather, where we expect like a little drop, mid drop, and it could still pop up a little bit more and then have that drop to the downside where it takes out 1680. But I really do want to see this being taken out, and that's why I've kind of highlighted it in red. But yeah, we'll see what happens with gold over the next few days, or because obviously we're also heading into August as well. It could be very choppy, and then maybe September could be the spike that we could see here, price turning over. So I didn't even think of that, but yeah, that's probably what's happening right now. So the other thing right now we've got with euro, wow, this has actually really been chopping over the last few days. So as we pretty much head into the summer months, so the summer period, we can expect some of this behavior to kind of be kind of normal. Not a lot of people are kind of just taking time off, so I guess there's a lot less amount of people active right now, but nonetheless there are still moves in play, and I'm going to try and do my best to kind of keep on top with it. But really what I'm trying to look at is just a bullet to the downside heading into 99. Regardless of what's going to happen, I think we're still going to see price drop to the downside. There could be a possibility of price popping into 103 and then dropping off, but just keep that in mind. But if we start to really take off, then it will be kind of like this scenario to the upside, but I probably won't leave that in because it might get a little bit confusing with how many drawings I got. But yeah, I probably will get rid of this one because, again, just keep it simple. But yeah, expecting a drop to the downside, so whether we go up a little bit more or drop lower, then it's totally up to the market. But that's what I'm kind of looking at for EU. If we take a look at NZDUSD, so for this, I'm pretty much looking at a similar kind of process. I'm either waiting for price to pretty much turn over to the downside, and I'm pretty much going to keep the same analysis from last week actually, because I'm not really seeing any need to change it. Main reason obviously is just price has just really been chopping over July and August, so again it makes sense why price with the summer period, that kind of explanation. But yeah, I'm looking at maybe 60 to being tapped. Might possibly happen over in September, early September, before this starts to happen as a new kind of move, or new long-term move rather. But really I'm just kind of like looking at a downside, so we could see 635 to be tapped, or 0.64 to be tapped and then move to the downside, or we could see just a complete downside move from rejecting 0.63. so that's simple enough with NZDUSD. So we take a look at AU. I'm looking at this kind of play for now. So started off this week with that huge push up, so quite cautious, and I'm kind of aware that price may want to do something here. So this could be a possibility where scenario 2 takes place. We start to jump into maybe 0.71 or 0.705 and then we drop to the downside, but ultimately that's, I don't know how much that pip move is, so it's a good 300 pip move. So if we can, you know, take some sells to the downside, that's what I'll be kind of aiming for. So if we start to look into the Japanese yen side of things, so basis for this is we're kind of looking for an overall shift to the downside, but as we can see, price is still stepping up. So regardless, we're still trying to find this kind of move where you know, we could expect some sort of turning point. So likely, you know, we could expect something like this to happen, or we'll just see a bullet move to the downside. So I'll just move this up ever so slightly because that was from last week's or last video. But we're kind of still looking for a downside move, and I'm going to be looking at a downside move unless we break above this 139 level or 140. If we do break above that, I'm going to have to look at some situations or bullish ideas. So we'll see where we can go with that. If we take a look at CJ, so with this, my intention is to go lower. I'm looking at price moves to kind of flip to the downside. Again, we could expect price obviously still to rally higher. So again, it's up to you if you are able to catch some bullish moves to the upside, but we're still trying to find like a move to the downside at some degree. So it'd be interesting if we can get involved with that. Again, something like this could happen also. But I'm not going to do that because it's pretty much confusing. But if something was like that was to happen, it would happen like maybe over like 2 weeks, because I think that's a bit of a kind of push, especially while we're in the slower period of the year. But yeah, so kind of still keeping the analysis on from last week. So let's take a look at EJ. So if we take a look into this, so one idea that I do have in regards to this is that we could start pushing higher, but for now, let me just talk about the sell-off for now. So I'm looking at price moving to the downside. So whether it's, you know, we just turn over from 138 and head back down. The other option that I'm looking at is, as I said earlier, is that price could start to really take up to the upside. Again, I'm not really sure, maybe into 144. If this does happen, we need to break like 142, but again, there's a lot of leeway up here. So with that being said, I'm gonna try and find some buy opportunities while this looks kind of new, and maybe ride it up until we find some sort of condition to sell. And if that condition to sell doesn't happen, then we should be able to push higher. So, but if we do find some sell, then we'll should be able to take out the low. So, kind of in two minds with EJ personally, but we could cross confluence it with the other pairs and say, you know, we're looking for a downside move. But again, it's kind of perspective really, and what happens with each pair. So if we take a look at AJ, so what I'm looking at here again is pretty much a sell-off move. So if we move this higher, so could look at 95 as a turning point, like so. Could expect some sort of drop. So we can see this is kind of unfolding, just price pushing up. The other thing that I'm kind of noticing as well is, you know, how fast this is kind of moving. So if this is a strong kind of move, there's no divergence, so this could still turn over to the downside. But if we break above 96, 97, I think we should be heading higher. So the second scenario that I've got here is if price doesn't make a low to 90, doesn't break lower, we could find a rejection at 91 and then it could rally higher. So that could be a buying opportunity here. But again, the idea is that you don't wait for the buy. You kind of you get the sells in first because we're expecting that, and then if the buy doesn't come, then you've already got the sell to kind of hedge it, if that makes sense. So we're not necessarily sure if this is going to hold 91 or 91.5. We just need to see if we can, you know, push further or give us that buy opportunity. So That's that. So if we take a look at the last two pairs, USD Swiss. So two scenarios, again, are probably my favored one for this pair is something like this. If I'm going to look at anything, it's probably going to be some sort of rally to the ups. Well, it's mainly going to be a sell-off, but I have a feeling that price may have the ability to push higher. My kind of barrier level is 99, so if we go above here, I think we are bullish. So because we've got all this room up here, right, we could look at possible buy moves here. Well, you know, if this does hold, it can progress over, and because we're in summer, the summer period, it could easily chop very nicely over this time or this month, and then it can fall in you know, maybe September. That's what I'm kind of thinking. So possibly looking at some buys. If 95 holds, then I'll be looking at buys, but ideally I want to look at sells. So we'll kind of see what's unfolding and mapping there. Let me just do this. There's a whole lot of noise there with the alerts. But yeah, let's take a look at USDCAD. So for this, kind of looking at the same analysis from last week. So I'm kind of liking this idea that we could expect a rally into 1.3 and then a drop off, or we could have 128 hold support and rally up. So I probably will stick with that for USDCAD. I don't think there's much really changed, but you know, it's interesting to see how obviously price develops week by week. So yep, that'll be all for this week, my friends. If you have any other questions, feel free to let me know. If you did get any value, make sure you leave this video a like, make sure you're subscribed, and we'll see you guys next week.